Welcome to Not That Girl Anymore, part of the Liminal Network. I'm your host, Dawn Bouillon. This is more than a podcast. It's a sisterhood. We're reclaiming our voices, our worth, and our lives. One story, one truth, one brave step at a time.
Hey, friends. Welcome back to Not That Girl Anymore. I'm your host, Dawn Bouillon, trauma therapist and coach, and the founder here of Embrace Your Brave. And yes, today we are talking about the show that I'm almost positive you probably heard of it or watched it a few times. But I have spent weeks trying to figure out why this show and this story has affected me so much and why it has affected so many of us. Why we are crying at the same scenes and texting our friends and sharing the clips and rewatching episodes over and over and over again. I think I've lost count. Why we're talking about it with our daughters and our sons and our partners and our friends and even our therapists. And I think I'm finally figuring it out. I don't think we're responding to off campus simply because it's a great story. I think we're responding because it reminds us of what healing can look like. Not perfect people, healing people. People carrying wounds and carrying trauma and carrying grief and carrying shame. And people trying to trust again. People trying to find their voice. People trying to figure out who they are after something painful happened. People trying to come home to themselves. And isn't that all of us in some way? The more I've reflected on it, the more I've realized this story isn't really about men or women. It's about people. It's about people breaking cycles, people choosing healing, people choosing honesty, people choosing connection, and people choosing each other. Not fixing each other, not rescuing each other, but helping each other heal. And honestly, that is the world I hope for. A world where we stop passing pain from one generation to the next. A world where we face what hurts, where we feel what hurts, and where we heal what hurts. A world where men and women become safer for one another, and where healing isn't something we do alone. A world where we help each other become who we were always meant to be. As I've watched people talk about this show, I don't hear them talking only about the romance, even though there's plenty of it. I hear them talking about healing and hope and friendship and trust and belonging. I hear people talking about mothers they wish they had, or friends they wish they had, or partners they wish they had. I hear people talking about what it feels like to finally be seen. And that tells me something super important. Healing often begins when we stop feeling alone. Healing begins when someone finally says, "Me too." One of the things that touched me most personally was watching the story open conversations with my own daughters. Conversations about trust, about consent, about healthy relationships, about trauma, about sexuality, and what it means to be loved well. And honestly, I'm so grateful for that because many of us grew up hearing a lot about what not to do, but we didn't always learn what healthy looked like, what trust looks like, what emotional safety looks like, what mutual respect looks like. and what healthy intimacy looks like. What I appreciate about the story is that it offers another possibility, not perfection, but possibility. A possibility that healing exists, the possibility that healthy relationships exist, the possibility that people can grow and change, the possibility that we can become more than what happened to us. One scene that stayed with me was the conversation between Hannah and her mom. I've watched so many people talk about that scene and say, wow, I wish I had a mom like that. And when I watched it, I had a different reaction because I thought, wow, I do have a mom like that. That is my mom. That's exactly what my mom would have said. That's exactly how she would have responded. And I just felt incredibly grateful for that. But I also found myself grieving for people who didn't have that. Because healing isn't only grieving what happened, sometimes it's grieving what didn't happen. The comfort you deserved but didn't receive, the protection you deserved but didn't receive, the parent you deserved but didn't receive. And if that's part of your story, I want you to know I see you and I care. And I want you to know there is hope because healing relationships can still be found through friendships, through mentors, through therapists, through support groups and safe communities, through people who help us remember who we are. And speaking of safe people, can we talk about the friendships for a minute? Because if you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me say, we are wounded in relationships and we are healed in relationships. And this story understands that. People show up, people care, people stay, people fight for one another, people help each other heal. And honestly, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it. As a trauma therapist, I was also struck by how trauma informed this story feels. It doesn't pretend trauma doesn't exist. It doesn't shy away from the pain. Sexual assault, addiction, family dysfunction, abuse, panic attacks, shame, fear, loss. It's all there. Garrett is carrying the wounds of an abusive father. Other characters are navigating addiction in their families or carrying trauma and shame and grief and fear. The story doesn't avoid those realities. It looks at them honestly. And then it asks, like, now what? Do we repeat this cycle? Do we numb it? Do we run from it? Or do we face it? Do we feel it? Do we heal it? And I think that's why so many of us are responding so strongly, not because we see ourselves only in the pain, but because we see ourselves in the possibility of healing. We see people learning to trust again, finding safety again, finding their voice again, discovering they are not broken. And honestly, I think one of the reasons so many people have responded so strongly to some of the intimacy scenes isn't just because they were sexual, it's because they were healing. What many of us saw wasn't just attraction, we saw trust, safety, patience, care, respect. We saw people whose experiences mattered, people whose healing mattered, people whose comfort mattered. And for many viewers, that represented a new possibility, not just for relationships, for healing. And can we talk about the men for a second? Because I don't think people are responding simply because they're attractive. And yes, they are very attractive. Attractive people have been all over TV forever. But what feels different is the care, it's the respect, the emotional intelligence, the conversations about trust and safety. Honestly, it felt like a completely different version of locker room talk, one that prioritized caring for people well. And I found myself thinking, more of that, please. One of the things that surprised me most is how connected I feel to people all over the world through this experience. People I've never met, people with completely different stories, and yet we're crying at the same scenes. We're talking about the same characters, feeling moved by the same moments. And there's something beautiful about that because trauma can feel isolating. Shame can feel isolating. Grief can feel isolating. And then a story comes along, and suddenly millions of people are saying, I saw myself in that. I felt that. I understand that. And for a moment, we're reminded that we are not alone. As the final episode ended and that song started playing called The Girl That I Am, and I just sat there because maybe that's what this entire story is really about. Becoming, finding your voice, learning to trust again, learning to let people in, learning to believe that healing is possible, and learning to love the person you're becoming. And it made me think about all the people who helped me become who I am. My mom, my brother, my therapist, my friends, my daughters, the people who love me, the people who believe in me, the people who reminded me who I was when I forgot and still do. Because yes, I am the woman I am because of what I've been through, but I'm also the woman I am because people have loved me. And I know not everyone listening has had those people, and some of you are still looking for them. And if that is you, please don't give up. Safe people exist, healing spaces exist. You deserve relationships where you can be seen and known and loved and valued. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about creating spaces like Reclaiming You. Because I've watched what happens when people discover they aren't alone. I've watched them find hope. I've watched them find healing. I've watched them find themselves. And maybe that's what I've been trying to put words to this whole episode. It's gratitude. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every conversation this story is opening up. I'm grateful for every parent talking with their child. I'm grateful for every survivor who feels less alone. I'm grateful for every person who walks away believing healing is possible because healing changes lives. And when something helps us feel seen and connected and hopeful and understood, I pay attention. You know, it's not every day that millions of people are paying attention to the things that I care about most. Healing, trauma, friendship, trust, belonging, breaking cycles, becoming who we were always meant to be. And if a story helps us have these conversations, I am so grateful for it. Maybe that's why this feels bigger than a television show. Maybe that's why it feels like a movement. Not because it's therapy, but because it's opening conversations that help people heal. And honestly, I feel like off campus is part of the worldwide healing team. Now, welcome to the team off campus. We're so glad you're here. And so, friends, listen, I don't know if you've seen the show, but I highly recommend it. It is doing something. It is bringing a healing movement. And I invite you into that space because this show has moved me so much and just opened up so many things in me. We probably will talk about this a few more times, but if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. See what you come away with. But until then, remember you matter. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your pain matters. Your dreams matter. And you're not that girl anymore.
Hey, friend, just a quick note. I am a licensed therapist, but this podcast isn't therapy. It's not meant to diagnose or treat anything. It's here to offer you support, encouragement, and real conversation. If you're struggling, please reach out to a trusted professional. You are not alone, and you are so worthy of healing. Even if your voice shakes, keep using it. Your healing matters. If you're ready to go deeper, you can book a session by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, embraceyourbrave.org, to learn more about our therapy and trauma-informed coaching options. Let's explore how we can walk this journey together. You are not alone. Embrace your brave, sis. You're not that girl anymore.